out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
The 12th, a day to celebrate history, community and family here in Northern Ireland. Join me, Arlene Foster.
And me, Dougie Beattie, as we bring you live coverage of the July 12th celebrations from the beautiful city of Belfast.
And right across the United Kingdom. It's all happening here on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's 6 o'clock and this is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Newsom. Now, we only went and did it. England are to the Euros final, but the question on everyone's lips is, should we get an extra bank holiday if we win? And good news, everybody, the culture wars are over. Well, that's according to a Labour Minister, Lisa Nandy. Something tells me she might be slightly wrong on this one. And yesterday saw the tragic murder of 3 women. But did you know, on average, in the UK, a woman is murdered every 3 days by a man? Do we need to do more to protect women and girls there? And did you know that 1 in 6 people in England are now on antidepressants? Why are we so sad? I can think of a few reasons. Or are doctors just over-medicating us? Now, Clive Lewis decided to add to protest while being sworn in as an MP by not swearing allegiance to the King. Was this a Republican protest completely necessary, though, or a bit of get over yourself? That's all to come in the next hour, but first, let's get those news headlines with Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you very much, and good evening to you. It's just after 6 o'clock, and the top story tonight in Enfield. Police have now retrieved what appear to have been 2 hard drives and bags of documents from a house connected to their ongoing triple murder investigation. If you're watching on television, you can see here the latest images coming into us, showing officers as they carried that evidence from the house, while another 3 members of staff bundled materials into a van to take it away for further investigations. Hertfordshire police say the suspect, Carl Clifford, remains in a serious condition in hospital and is still yet to speak with officers. He was found near a cemetery in North London yesterday after a major manhunt for the 26-year-old. It's understood a crossbow has also been recovered, and he is wanted for the deaths of Carol Hunt, the wife of BBC commentator John Hunt, and 2 of their daughters. Detectives are vowing to seek justice for the family of those victims, who are currently receiving support from specialist officers. Police have released details of a man they're hunting after human remains were discovered packed into 2 suitcases at Bristol's Clifton Suspension Bridge. He's described as black with a beard and was dressed in black, wearing a backpack. Officers were called last night to reports of a man acting suspiciously and say they're now urgently working to identify him. Police are now carrying out citywide searches after last night's discovery, and an investigation is underway to identify the remains that were found. The Prime Minister has brushed off concerns that his plans to release prisoners early to ease overcrowding in jails might see a crime wave unleashed across the country. His new government's proposing to free inmates after serving 40% of their sentences. And it's expected Sir Keir Starmer will authorise that emergency measure later this week. It comes after he said he was shocked at the levels of overcrowding in prisons, admitting it was worse than he first thought. Well, speaking at the NATO summit in Washington to GB News, Sir Keir Starmer has blamed the previous government for the lack of prison capacity.
I can't build a prison in 7 days with the best will in the world. It is clearly a problem left by the last government. There's no issue about that. You cannot be in this terrible state. And they ignored the problem, didn't fix the problem. We are going to have to fix it. We're going to have to make short-term measures, and we'll announce that in due course. And then, of course, we'll have to do the further measures. But I simply can't build a prison in 7 days. This is a terrible failure of government by the last government.
Well, while he is spending time in Washington, the Prime Minister has also called England's progress to the final of Euro 2024 fantastic. But he won't commit to giving us a bank holiday if they win the tournament. Sir Keir Starmer missed the winning goal in last night's match against the Netherlands because he was in meetings in Washington. He's been asked about the potential, though, of an extra day off.
It was fantastic. I managed to pop out from one of my sessions for just 5 minutes, which is when I saw Harry Kane get the first goal. I missed the second one, but it's brilliant. So on we go now. Great chance. I've always said this team, we're going to go all the way. So I'm really, really pleased, and just good luck for Sunday.
Now, we spotted that last year you said that if the Lionesses won the World Cup, there should be an extra bank holiday. So if England win, do we all get an extra day off?
Well, we should certainly mark the occasion. I don't want to jinx it. I went to the last Euros finals. I don't want to go through that again. So don't want to jinx anything. We must mark it in some way, but the most important thing is getting it over the line on Sunday.
Well, although Sir Keir Starmer won't promise to give us a day off, these England fans in Nottingham say the whole country deserves a break.
100% we need a bank holiday. First time since 1966 that we could be bringing it home. What more better reason to get a bank holiday than that?
We haven't had much to celebrate recently as a country. So yeah, I think it's a great excuse for a celebration, and to all come together and celebrate our football team.
I think it's absolutely necessary. I mean, why shouldn't we? Winning a tournament like the Euros comes once every blue moon. Well, never in my lifetime, never in anyone's lifetime. So why not give the public a day off? You know, we deserve it.
In other news, we've heard today that a police officer has been jailed for more than 6 years after burgling a house to steal a safe containing £16,000. Ben Cook discovered the cash was being stored at the property in Bridgend after he obtained data from the force he worked for and their computer system. He told the homeowner he had a warrant to search her home. Water companies in England and Wales have been told that they can put up bills, but not by as much as they had asked for. Regulator Ofwat says they can hike prices by an average of £19 a year, but that's a third less than the amount they had requested. Water firms met with the Environment Secretary Steve Reed earlier and agreed to some reforms, including ring-fencing money for upgrades, so it can't be spent on bonuses. And finally, American actor Shelley Duvall, best known for her role in The Shining, has died at the age of 75. She also starred in Annie Hall and Popeye, and her partner Dan Gilroy told The Hollywood Reporter that she died at her home in Texas from complications relating to diabetes. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis. More at 7 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson, tonight. Hope you're having a wonderful evening out now. Now, joining me until 7, I've got a wonderful panel for you today, is a former editor of The Sun and my old boss, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the very wonderful journalist and commentator, Judita De Silva, looking absolutely stunning as always. Really love working with you. I just feel so like plain, basically. But it's all about you, this show. It's not about what we've got to say. So get your views coming in right now at gbnews.com/yoursay. Now, it's coming home, possibly, but should we be staying home to watch it? England are through to the European Championship final after a fairly lacklustre start, I think it's fair to say. Last-minute goals and a penalty shootout. If, and it's a big if, we're up against Spain, remember, we win. Should we get an extra bank holiday to celebrate? You heard Keir Starmer talking about it earlier on. I think he's hankering after a ticket, don't you? But should we get that bank holiday? Kelvin, now, we've worked together before. I think we agree on this bank holiday malarkey. We're playing on Sunday night. Lots of people will be celebrating, I think, with a few beers or two. So let's just call Monday off and let's all have a bank holiday and celebrate.
Well, there's a good chunk of the country who currently take time off to which they're not entitled, and I absolutely object to the idea that our country, which is not in the greatest of shape right now, should give up another day in relation to football. Look, I love my football, and a lot of families and friends will be getting together to have a great Sunday rather than just thinking about going to work on the Monday, which can be, for some people, quite depressing, although for me, I quite enjoy it. So I am hostile to the idea, but I'm not hostile to people enjoying themselves. Why can't they just enjoy themselves and get up and go to work in the morning? Why is it that every time we do anything correctly in our country, there's always some socialist or some Lib Dem person comes out of the woodwork and says, I tell you what you need is to have a day off. Look at the number of people who are currently having a day off. There's 9 million people, throw in the unemployed and the sick, who aren't going anywhere. Every day is a bank holiday to them. Yeah. So let's just say, enjoy the moment and then go to work normally.
Sir Ed Davey is another one that's quite keen on this idea, isn't he, Judith? Yep. But do you think Kelvin's been a bit bar humbug there? I mean, very much. We haven't done this since 1966. However, I will say it's slightly sexist because we didn't do it when England women won, 2 years ago now?
Yeah, I think you are being a bit bar humbug because at the end of the day, on the emotional level, this is going to be an era-defining moment. It's going to be something exceptional. Like you said, the country has wanted it for so long and wanted it so badly for so long. If it should actually come to fruition, it's something that unequivocally will galvanise the entire country. Everybody would be bound together for something positive. And on a practical level, if people did go to work, it's an exercise in futility because, productivity levels will be rock bottom because they'll be distracted by the euphoria of we just won the
No, the reverse will be true, that people will be so buzzed up, they'll actually make some effort to actually increase either the profitability or the amount of production that they actually produce. So I have emerged as the bar humbug figure in this debate. I am massively in favour of us having a brilliant day on Sunday, or brilliant evening anyway. However, I don't believe that giving another day up to a lack of productivity is a good idea.
And the thing is, it's going to cost us £1.36 billion. I mean, to have a bank holiday, that's what it costs the country as a whole.
But then when you think of how you're going to stimulate the commerce for pubs and shops and restaurants, that's something that they would...
I'm not going to spend that much, Judith. But
they will greatly welcome that extra money because people will be so buoyed by what had happened. The champagne, the beer and all the alcohol will be flowing, the barbecues will be going. So that's something that you're offsetting one loss with a gain on another side.
So if you were still editing The Sun, Kelvin, and someone phoned up on Monday morning, I mean, 1.5 million people are expected to do this. Another 1.5 million are expected to call in sick or work from home. And someone said, I'm sorry, boss, I just can't make it today. I'm not feeling too well. What would your reaction be?
Well, if I honestly thought that they'd just been on the batter all night and just carried on enjoying themselves, I'd be very annoyed because supposing on the other side the employer said, really, if that's your attitude, we won't pay you. Right? And then, of course, you get involved in employment tribunal problems and all the rest of it. It's very, very tough today to be the boss of a smallish company and have people ringing in sick. There's almost nothing you can do about it.
You can ask them to provide a sick note, and then they have to...
Well, how difficult is that?
No, but then that's kind of a deterrence from them making up a story about being unwell. If you say provide a sick note, you're within your rights to ask for
our sickness rates, for instance, if you look in the National Health Service, right, the sickness rates there are nearly 3 weeks of a year now. It's 14 days. This is incredible stuff. So, look, I'm in favour of us doing well. I'm in favour of us having a great time. I'm just not in favour of giving up a vital day on what is supposed to be a long socialist march towards break-even.
You're cutting your nose to spite your face because I strongly, I dispute the notion that you believe if people are happy about winning the Euros, they'll be really focused on work if they came to the office.
They might even turn up in order to talk to other colleagues about what a great match it was.
And lots of people are on Team Kelvin today as well, and Andy, who actually gets a bank holiday off work nowadays? In any case, vast majority, it's just another working day. Players can have the day off, they deserve it. What a ridiculous idea, says Carol. I'm sure many don't go to work today because of hangovers. Listen to Kelvin, listen to your Uncle Kelvin, I think is always the best way to go. And bank holiday for football, says Kathy. What next? How, you know, it's like, how would that affect small to medium businesses? They just can't afford to do it. And Tim, interesting idea, Tim says, if we win, it just makes St George's Day a bank holiday instead. Interesting idea, because calling a bank holiday on the Sunday night for the next Monday is going to be an interesting one, isn't it? And what if you work in the NHS? You can't take the bank holiday, can you? You've got to go out to work, especially for hangovers. Right, now, from what unites us to what divides us. The new Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, has said to government employees that the era of the culture wars is over. Now, is it really? Judita, this is from the Labour Party, which, to my mind, seems to have done more to encourage the culture wars than any other party in history.
I wouldn't say that, because I think what Lisa Nandy is speaking to is what has been happening pretty much across most of the Western world, which is the highlighting of the differences between peoples, and that spurs on an animosity between them, really heightens fracture lines between a society, and then you have the kind of contention you have that we saw going into this last election. She's saying, coming on the back of that, if you move towards pride in Britain, but a Britain that is made up of different communities, recognising them, celebrating, and the contribution they make to make this Britain great. That's a wonderful thing. That's a beautiful ethos going forward, which is more inclusive of everyone that goes together to populate Britain.
I mean, Kelvin, the biggest culture divide or culture war at the moment is the gender issue, isn't it? And Lisa Nandy did once infamously say that trans women are women and trans men are men and should be accommodated in the prison of their choosing. Now, if that isn't a divisive culture war, I don't know what isn't.
Well, actually, the biggest division right now, in taking your point about the difference of the kind of the people we have in our country, of course, was highlighted in the general election, in which 5 pro-Gaza Muslim MPs were elected and defeated the Labour candidate. So I think the problem is Lisa Nandy has to say something. All the ministers have been told, you've got to do something. For instance, Miliband has now banned oil exploration. New oil wells being looked at in the North Sea. You've got somebody else doing something. And so Nandy says, well, I've got to say something. I'm going to say I'm in favour of us all getting on a lot better. There is no possibility in a free speech world, and actually really in a social media world, where people are going to agree with each other. What we've discovered is that not only do we get a vote, we have the ability to go on X or Twitter or whatever it is and actually say these things. And it's that issue which means, and that is why I don't even know why she bothered saying any of this, because it fundamentally will not be true. People want to have pride in their country, but there is likely to be division based on culture.
See, that's the difference. When you're saying about people, there will always be differences of opinion because people are individuals. I cannot just intrinsically think like you. I'm a different person from you.
Indeed,
but
correct.
It's possible to function with a difference of opinion without being combative and antagonistic in the process.
That's where I disagree with you.
But I think that comes down to the functionality of having, when you say you represent all communities and celebrate all communities, because those communities exist in Britain, they make up Britain, they vote in Britain, they pay taxes in Britain. But what has led to the contention...
Why do we have, sorry to interrupt you, Dida, why do we have to have different communities? What's wrong with us all just being one community?
No, but it's the same thing, like you said, between men and women. Men don't go through what women go through. You have to recognise and respect a difference. And when you feel respected, you feel understood, you feel you have value. And then you don't feel you're fighting with men or you're combating with men or there's a contention with men. You understand that you occupy a space of value that recognises your individuality, and that can work in tandem with someone else.
Let me ask you a question then. If we had the same discussion in a year's time, does anybody honestly believe that Nandy will have turned out to be correct, that actually we're all getting along a lot better and we only have one object? The answer, honestly...
We don't exist in utopia.
This will not happen.
That will not happen.
It will not happen.
What she's doing is making strides in the right direction rather than doing nothing.
She's saying something because she's been ordered by the Prime Minister from each of the divisions of their ministries, say something. So she's decided to say that.
Something. She said that this is going to be the platform that
her
section of the ministry is going to be working on. So she's basically said, this is the work I am going to do. These are the endeavours we're going to take.
Well,
but for you to
Lisa Nandy is very lucky even to be in the job, isn't he? Let's be honest. once you get culture, the
Someone
next job is basically pushing a broom outside audits. You know,
on the flip side of what you said, imagine in a year's time, her endeavours actually improve the social state of the community. What would you then say?
I'd be amazed, and B, I'd be delighted, and I absolutely guarantee to you that everybody now has a view which is basically at odds with somebody else's view. Yeah. This is the world we're in. I mean, and I'm afraid we just have to accept it. So I quite enjoy the ministers all saying this is what we're going to do, you know, being punchy and getting out there, and the Tories are rubbish. But actually, in her case, I don't think it's effective.
I have to start off on a positive foot, and it'll be very interesting what Rosie Duffel, the Labour MP, has to say about Lisa Nandy's culture war as well. Meanwhile, you out there are saying, Martin, Lisa Nandy doesn't know what day of the week it is, never mind what a culture war is. And Terry says Lisa Nandy will stoke the culture wars. Things are going to get much worse with her and Dodds in charge. Neither can define a woman. And I'm sorry, that's what I keep coming back to as well. And Lisa Nandy did infamously say that if anyone disagreed with her on the trans women being women thing, they shouldn't be in the Labour Party. Hello, Rosie Duffel, give us a call. Right now, OK, we move on. 3 women were murdered yesterday, and a woman is killed by a man every 3 days on average in the UK. Do we need to do more to protect women? It sounds like a stupid question, but there's a lot more going on here, and we're talking about it next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
Thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign, and thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War. Restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother, and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved ones.
The People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a lovely evening out there. Now, keeping me company until 7 o'clock is former editor of The Sun, Kelvin McKenzie, and journalist and commentator Judita De Silva. Now, in recent years, a woman has been killed by a man every 3 days in the UK on average. Also, domestic abuse cases rise by up to 38% during major football events. So, I'm asking now, should we be doing more to protect women? And if we do think that, how do we even go about it? Judita, I'm going to come to you first on this one. I opened, I think it was the Daily Mail this week, and page after page seemed to be horrific news about women being victims of crime. And it was just utterly depressing. And the situation just does not seem to be getting any better. What on earth is happening? What can we do about it?
I think it's the kind of division of power, because you can't really help women's issues if you don't intrinsically understand them. And when you think about when things like this happen, it always feels that the buck ends with the decision of a man. So to get legislature, to get funding, to get action made, you have to go... The final point is always a man. So when you think, like when they say the saying, the fish rots from the head, if you don't put women in positions of power, final decision-making power, the infrastructure will never be reflective of the kind of protections women need. And I remember I was listening during the elections, I was listening to Harriet Harman, and she was saying when she first started as an MP, there were 20 women MPs, now there are 223. And she's a big advocate for collective working together across the aisles for the betterment of the position of women in politics and in society. That's what it would take.
I mean, Kelvin, I'm not... Obviously, you are the only male in the room at the moment, but when I was talking on social media about this, yesterday it was, saying sort of like, you know, not all men murder women. Obviously they don't, but most women who are murdered are killed by men. I mean, that is a fact. It's a horrible fact, but it's true, and I'm not having to go at men here. But some of the comments I got back from men were appalling. Yeah, some women deserve it. That was actually a genuine quote. And someone said to me, well, there's still a lot of you about, meaning what exactly? And then, obviously, the other one I got a lot of was, well, more men are killed by men. What you can do about that? And it's like, yeah, missing the point. That's awful too. Get that. But that is awful. But what is it with some men that they can't... I mean, you know, men have wives, they have daughters, they have mothers. What is it with men that they can't see the issue that doesn't seem to be getting any better?
Well, I don't know. I can't speak for those kind of men who wrote those kinds of notes.
And I wouldn't
notes for you.
But I mean, it's just shocking that.
And we have a current case. Look, I recognise that we can't go into the detail of it, but we have a current case in which 3 women. I cannot remember the last time there was a 3 murders like that of this sort, I think what you have to look at, you have to look at the family. I mean, without going into it all, I mean, after all, the guy is actually in hospital. He's never been questioned, right? So there's no question that we're crossing into that line. But he has his relative, his closest is his sibling, who is currently doing 30 years for murder. So this is one family with two brothers who've turned out. One has actually been convicted, and the other one seems to be in some way a suspect involved in this.
So do you think we need tougher sentences for men who murder women?
Well, if you take this case, regardless of who did this case, whoever killed these 3 ladies, right, is likely to go to jail for the rest of their lives. Now, the current suspect is 26. That means 50 or 60 years. With us paying, effectively, I read a piece of research on it the other day. It costs $50,000 a year to operate a cell. 50 years of this, that's £3 million. And this guy gets fed 3 meals a day. He's got a nice warm cell, right? That is our current justice system. And so...
That sounds like a yes.
So our issue is the following. Should we actually be debating whether we should bring back the death penalty? I mean, I recognise Parliament is never going to allow it, but however, Parliament would never have allowed Brexit, right? So a referendum might change all this. Now, I'm just saying, I don't know who carried out this murder, right?
No, as I say, it's a live case. And
I don't know who carried it out. All I'm saying is that if somebody did, then in that case, should we be considering an area where we haven't considered it now for the thick end of what must be damn near 80, 90 years.
Judita, do you think that's a reasonable opinion, that maybe the death sentence for horrific murders of women, and most women are murdered by men that they know, either a partner or an ex-partner?
It's worth putting it on the table to debate it, because everything comes with its pros and cons, and getting it wrong when it comes to the death penalty can be horrific. So that's something that needs a lot of debate. But I do think harsher sentencing, reviewing things like the statutes of limitations, and also when you think about if a woman is a victim of a crime by a man, chances are she has to pick up the phone or go to a station or report it to a man. That's already a second degree of trauma. That's why I say you have to have a filtration system that peppers women into every level of protections for women. Because when you feel you don't have sanctuary to run to when something horrible is done to you, you internalize it, and then this victim culture is perpetuated within female society, where you just pass on generational trauma.
Right, well, I happen to know through some friendship groups, right, of a rape allegation that was made, and the people involved in it, the police on the other side, were women. They were, by the way, spectacular. I mean, the women police officers in dealing with it. So I think you probably have a reasonable point that if a woman is facing some kind of violence at all, the last thing she wants to do is report it to another man.
I mean, and over the fact is that over the past 4 years, prosecutions for rape in England and Wales have fallen by 70%. Many women, when they're asked about why they don't report their rapes, they say they feel like they are not going to be listened to, they're not going to be believed, and they are going to be treated like the criminal.
But even the men you said you spoke to, when you exist within a society where you know it's commonplace for victim blaming, that, oh, why were you wearing this? Why were you there?
Yes,
why do you talk like that?
What are you expecting?
So what you already begin from a position of what have I done wrong to be a victim. So you've already stagnated the pool of justice and reform and someone finding recourse for a remedy to what they've been through. So the whole thing around is just the deck is stacked against women. You have to look at setting up society in such a way that you recognise what the position that women hold, which is one at a deficit, and what they need and the outcome.
So we're coming into a parliament. I think we're 40% of the parliament is now women, I think, which is the highest number we've ever had. Do you believe that and I think with the cabinet, they're trying to get to 50% of the cabinet, aren't they? I'm not sure what the number is. Are we actually going to see our administration at the top level? Are we actually going to see laws which are aimed towards your point? Are we going to see it? Because I can't believe men are not going to block any of this stuff. So are we going to see laws and statutes which actually favour the area that you're worried about?
I think that's what Harriet Harman's point was so good about. She says that there has to be cross-party collaboration on issues that directly affect women. Well, that way it's going to be on the floor. People will be debating it. And once you put it out there, anyone, like you said, any male MP who then goes against it, you're jeopardising your own position because you're going against 51% of the population.
When Jess Phillips read out a list of murdered women over the past 12 months in Parliament on International Women's Day, do you know how many male MPs actually turned up to hear it? 3. You've got some great comments coming in on this one, though. Leslie says, if women were killed by dogs every 3 days, we'd do something about it. Men are the only threat to women, and we do nothing. And Keith says, until such time as an appropriate deterrent exists, i.e. capital punishment, nothing will change. Life is becoming less valued with time. And Andrew, it's a very interesting point, bearing in mind England are in the finals of the Cup on Sunday night. Andrew says, I used to work in accident and emergency, and we were always worried when England lost in a major football competition because there would be a massive spike in domestic violence, which was always precipitated by alcohol. Interesting views. Please do keep them coming in.
And another point I wanted to make is that beyond talking about what we need, one of the most valuable and powerful things we need is allies that are men, who are willing to speak up and speak loudly. That's how change really happens.
Well, and we've got lots of great comments coming from men tonight. Sean, a lot of you getting in touch on this subject. Sean says, more should be done to protect women, but when you have people in power who downgrade what a woman even is, a criminal justice system that gives pitiful sentences to rapists and the downgrading of services for biological women, What can we expect? Very, very strong views on that one. But do keep them coming in. As I said, it's a strong debate. And as we say, you know, football, it tends to be win or lose. We hit the booze and domestic violence spikes, as you just heard there. So please do keep your views coming in. Now, we move on. 1 in 6 people in England are now on antidepressants. And if you read some of the stuff that's coming in on this one, you can probably understand why. But why are we so sad? Or is there a case of just being handed out to keep us quiet?
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It looks like it'll be a pretty cloudy day for most of us on Friday. There's a risk of some very heavy showers across the southwest as well. Now, for most of us, high pressure is building in just for a time for the end of the week and into the start of the weekend. That means it will turn that much drier through the next few days, but there's still a risk of some showers. And through this evening, I think central areas are most likely to see the cloudiest skies and a risk of some rain through this evening. Also, some areas of rain might move into the far southeast from the near continent. Where skies remain clear, though, to the north, across parts of Scotland, it could be a bit of a fresh start down into the lower single figures by tomorrow morning. But for most of us, a fairly mild start. But as I said, sunshine is going to be a little bit limited through Friday. A northerly wind drags cloud in, perhaps some more heavy rain to the far northwest of Scotland throughout Friday morning. Some sunny spells, though, coming through for Northern Ireland, southwestern areas of Scotland. Also, some areas of northeastern England as well, but here we've got a northerly wind and that's going to keep the temperatures down through the day. And as I said, there is a risk of showers across the south coast throughout the day, particularly as we head into the afternoon into the southwest. We could see some thundery, heavy downpours. But for most of us elsewhere, it should stay dry through Friday. Quite a lot of cloud around though, so with that lack of sunshine, it's not going to be a particularly warm feeling day. And we could see some heavier rain move into the east coast of northern England later on in the day. So for most of us, temperatures in the high teens at best, possibly scraping 20 or 21 degrees in the far southeast. Saturday, there's little in the way of change. We've still got this rain lingering across eastern coasts of northern England and parts of Scotland. And once again, we could see some fairly heavy showers breaking out across parts of Wales and southwestern England. But in any sunshine, it will feel quite warm over the weekend, particularly as we head towards Sunday, when I think it will be a bit of a drier day and we could see temperatures climbing into the low 20s.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems up in North Ayrshire tonight. The A760, the Largs Road at Largs, is closed at the scene of a serious accident. In Cheshire, near the English-Welsh border, that short stretch of the Broxton Road between Broxton and Clutton closed off the A41 at the scene of an accident. On the M6 in Staffordshire, 2 lanes are closed northbound, 16 to 17, heading north of Stoke-on-Trent after a car broke down. In East Sussex, the A27 remains closed from Berwick to Polegate for an ongoing police investigation. And the M20 in Kent is partly blocked London bound 928 near Ashford after a lorry broke down. In Hampshire on the A34, if you are heading north of Winchester at the Sutton Scotney services, a lorry caught fire, so the slip road to the services is closed. And trams are suspended between Oldham Mumps and Rochdale Town Centre. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hello, welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson. You might have spotted the difference. Hope you're having a wonderful evening out there. Keeping me company until 7 o'clock is former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and journalist and commentator teeth back in, Judita Da Silva. Thank you very much, Dawn. Right, OK. Now, new data from the NHS has confirmed that 1 in 6 people in England are now prescribed antidepressants. Oh dear. This is over 8 million people and shows a rise of 26% during the last 10 years. So I'm asking, have we actually become that depressed, or are doctors over-medicating us just to keep us quiet, really? I mean, giving us a tablet is cheaper than therapy, after all, isn't it? Kelvin, I mean, you are being an upbeat, sparkling type person.
True.
Yeah, obviously are not on antidepressants, are you then?
I'm not. No. I'm not.
So why are so many people giving them?
Well, if you turn up to a doctor and you say to them, I'm feeling down in the dumps because, you know, something's happened, you know, some domestic aggro, or the kids are causing me a problem, or I got fired from a job or made redundant or something like that, it would take them about 2 seconds for the GP to say, do you need some help? And that is the code for, yes, I'm feeling pretty low in life, and here is, I will take the tablet. So I think one of the problems for a doctor is, what does the doctor say when they hear, you know, these issues connected with your mental stability? Now, why is it that we are all in a position, every family, by the way, every single family will be able to say that one of their family or two of their family are on, or either have been or are currently on it? And I know through my wider family that actually it has been quite useful, actually, funnily enough. However, my question really is this really a justifiable number? How can our country function in this way? What is it that's happened to our country? Are people trying it on? For instance, is this a prelude to, for instance, some kind of
calling in sick on Monday morning
benefit? Well, no, benefit payments. You know, and you get much more money out of health sickness than you do out of straightforward unemployment. So unemployment benefits. So you know. But what I can't get, and what I'd be very interested if any of your viewers were doctors, would be to explain why it is that their not instant reaction, but their normal reaction is to say, this will help you.
I don't think it would be that simple, because you have to meet certain markers for a doctor to identify you as in need of prescription medication for a condition. You would have to, I think, from my experience of people I've spoken to who are on them, you have to present with certain behaviours for a certain period of time for it to be a problem worthy of now getting medication. Psychotherapy might have been suggested to you for you to take advantage of that. Do you need someone to speak to? Do you have someone in the family? Do you have someone near home? All of these would probably have been explored before you get to the point. And the fact that so many people are meeting the threshold for medication,
I can contest that. I can contest that, because about 10 years ago, I went to the doctor saying I felt run down, I felt knackered, all the rest of it. I hadn't even ended my thought process, right, before I was effectively offered antidepressants. And I said, actually, funnily enough, I don't need any of that stuff. But thanks very much, anyway, for answering. I was wondering whether I could just have a blood test.
But
How
you
about
see
that?
the fact that you've got the personality and social situation where, when presented with medication, you could say no. Someone who then would say yes probably is emotionally in a state where they do need it. Because all a doctor can do is, when you tell them your symptoms, present you with options or what they would suggest could help, you have the agency to say no. But if you're at a point where you think, yes, I want medication, you're probably in an emotional state where you do need that medication.
Do you think there's an issue here as well, that it's cheaper and easier to prescribe a tablet than to get somebody on the waiting list for therapy? And we know sort of like social care and therapy services in this country are on their knees. We can't support people that really, really desperately need it. So do you think it's just easier for doctors now? You've got 10-minute appointments, give you some pills, go away?
Yes, I do think it does compound the problem, lack of funding. And that's why that also is one of the issues plaguing the NHS, because when you think about how much discourse exists about mental health, the infrastructure, a robustness of infrastructure doesn't exist to actually help people with mental health issues beyond the quick fix of take the medication. So hopefully statistics like this would buoy them to say, let's revisit what we're doing if you're over-medicating a population that might not need it.
But what I don't understand is it getting worse because the NHS is in such a state, or we are genuinely... this is actually... I'm going to read this one out. So it's quite funny. James, good evening, James. Only 1 in 6, Dawn. With the Labour government, the numbers will surely rise.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. I agree with that.
And Lynn says, Dawn, mental health problems are the new bad back syndrome, and you do have to wonder, I must admit. And Maggie again. Well, not a lot of Keir Starmer fans in the room here. There will probably be 1 in 3 on antidepressant by the time this government have failed us. But interestingly, Adrian says they ask you first about thoughts of harming yourself. Lockdowns weren't good for us. Interesting.
See, that's the point I was making, that any reputable, responsible medical practitioner has to ask certain questions, and your responses will then give them an indication of whether you're the person who requires medication or something more.
Does anybody actually believe that, what was the number, 1 in 6?
1 in 6, yeah, absolutely.
Were so depressed by life that they should be entitled to this kind of treatment.
That's 8.7 million people in England alone.
All you have to do is look at social media. Social media is the most powerful entity that exists in society.
That's enough to anybody, to be fair.
Just look at what people say, how they say it. Why is it that we have a Gen Z, late millennials, and now Gen A, that the minute they feel an emotion, they feel the need to put on the camera and record it and put it out to the world? Because it's like what they say in psychology, when you have an external locus for self-evaluation, that's already a schism in your personality, because you find your value through other people, but other people don't know you. That already shows that you're presenting with a rather alternative mental state.
But also, you could also argue that actually social media has been very helpful in one respect, in that the youngsters now want to be totally sober around social media, and therefore they've given up alcohol. So and the alcohol, as we have discussed earlier, is often the font of all troubles. They don't want to be seen to be drunk. Look, I buy this. Social media. If you are sensitive, don't go on social media. Right, which is why it plays to me. I absolutely love it. The idea of people being vile. It makes me laugh. The idea that they're sitting there, you horrible little man.
It's not if you're sensitive. If you are human, it might affect you to different varying degrees. But if anyone, the strongest-willed of people, sat in front of a computer and just had a tirade of abuse at them constantly, it would get you. There would be a chink in that armour.
Plus, you're no disrespect, but you're not exactly young anymore. And I think if you're
seriously, I tell you what, ageism,
to say that,
disgraceful.
But I mean, if you're a youngster and you are seeing all the stuff that's out there and you're comparing yourself to what you see, which is not real, I can understand that. But therapy is the answer rather than pills.
It is interesting that young people of a certain age, and I was thinking really about kind of 14 to 21, I suspect, actually, if they don't see it on TikTok, it won't have happened. And that is an astonishing aspect of life.
There were certain members of Parliament who actually did their entire campaign on TikTok.
Did they? How did they do?
Very, very well.
Did they?
Nigel Farage has got one of the biggest followings on TikTok, which is considering he's not young either. To be fair, sorry, Nigel. Right, now we move on. Talking of MPs, probably got a TikTok account as well. The Labour MP Clive Lewis swore his oath of allegiance to the King, but not before he could call for the abolition of the monarchy and call for a republic. I wonder what Kelvin thinks about this one. Stay tuned, don't go too far. Loads more coming up.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm joined now by Stefan Kyriasis to give us the latest on everything theatre.
So, yeah, we're going in first with Starlight Express, which is back. It's not in the West End. It's out at Wembley at the Troubadour Theatre, which is a big, almost kind of warehouse space, which suits because, as you know, have you seen the show?
Starlight Express was my first ever musical. I must have been about 7 or 8 years old. I only saw it once, but I remember it being magical.
Well, this one, it's 1984 it started, and it's still running in Bochum in Germany in a huge arena. So basically what we've got, they've slightly tweaked it, and it's a little boy or little girl, depending on the cast, going to bed, obsessed with toy trains and dreaming of trains. Everybody is dressed up. To me, it looks like a cross between Tron and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I don't really think any of them look remotely like a train, but hey, the songs are Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's pop mixed with kind of cod 1950s rock and roll, some power ballads. The lyrics are politely like something out of an old speak and spell machine or something, you know. He's a steam train, they're out of date, he's being bullied by the diesel and the electric, and he falls for this carriage, the first-class carriage, new girl Pearl, and he wants to impress her, so he enters a race, and that's pretty much it. And when the races happen, all these barriers come up around where we're sitting, the lights are flashing, the music's thumping. It's utterly ridiculous, and I felt like a kind of teenager that was huffing sherbet dib-dabs off a giant block of sugar. It's so much fun, and the really crucial thing about it all is that somehow, in the middle of all of that, I just felt myself getting into the story. And when Pearl and Rusty have their little duet, I was very moved, and there's this big starlight sequence, which is the inspiration, the magical starlight that he's seeking. It's beautiful.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson, keeping you company on until 7 o'clock tonight. Now, I have a former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and a journalist and commentator, Judita Da Silva. And they are having cracking debates tonight. It's great to have their company. It's great to have your company as well. Now, our new MPs have been sworn into Parliament. Yay, brilliant. Which includes swearing allegiance to the King. It's tradition, you know. However, Labour MP Clive Lewis decided to take his oath under protest by calling for the UK to become a republic. Let's have a look at what he said.
I take this oath under protest and in the hope that one day my fellow citizens will democratically decide to live in a republic. Until that time, I do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles according to law.
Now, he's not the only one to do it. To be fair, I think there was an SNP member who said he was, but didn't do it quite so dramatically. Judita, what do you make of this? I mean, he has a right to do it.
No, he has a right to express where he stands, because at the end of the day, when you look at the practicalities of the job and the position he occupies, he's in service of the people. He's not in service of the singular individual that is the monarch. So he can say what he said, that he's in protest. He doesn't really actually technically need to vow to allegiance to the crown. He doesn't serve the singular crown. He serves the people of Britain. He should swear allegiance to them. So on merit, he should say what he says is valid. And there were other people who showed protest, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, in their own way. So lasering in on him isn't fair, because he represents a sentiment that's very prevalent in the country.
But he's also, by the way, the thing I'm confused about here, Kelvin, he's also served in the army. OK?
He was not an officer.
An officer, which meant he had to swear allegiance. Why did he not have a problem with that, but has a problem with this? Was he being a bit of a drama queen?
I presume, well, he's a massive outsider even within the Labour Party, let's be honest with you. I mean, I think there are 102 government payroll jobs, and he wouldn't be offered one if there were 502 payroll jobs. Nobody wants Clive Lewis, so the only way he can get
90 grand a year as it is.
Well, the only reason he does that kind of thing is to gain himself some publicity. Unfortunately, he's also talking against the tide. I mean, as you pointed out so generously, I'm somewhat older than both of you guys, and I have seen the monarchy go up, down, sideways, and whatever. Currently, the republic drive in our country has never been smaller, right? I think with Kate not being well, perhaps with Charles not being well, there's a whole series of reasons, to be honest with you, and having seen so much political turmoil in our country, that actually people feel, thank God we have a king or a queen or a princess, rather than having, I don't know, John Prescott or Heseltine as a president. So he is actually sitting outside, I think, mainstream debate right now. Look, it's free speech. He can do it. He can do it, and he has done it. But the thing is that do we really have to give up our time to discuss somebody quite at the bottom end of the political ladder?
Yes, you do, because he represents an opinion that a lot of people in the country do share.
Not a lot. Not a lot.
But then when you think about whenever there are big events,
no, I don't agree with the lot. I agree that people do have it.
But this is how it begins. When you other the opinion of free-thinking citizens. You constantly tell them that you feel they have no value. That is how you stimulate a motivation for it to grow. Because at the end of the day, like, what you have to understand is that tide is shifting, generations are changing. Younger people do not see the value in the monarchy that older generations do. And he is speaking to
honestly, that is. I'd like to see some polling on that. No, that's a disgraceful thing to say. That's a disgraceful thing to say.
Because I said
the young people in this country are as loyal to the crown, I suspect, as even somebody like me.
I said a lot of you. That's one thing. Always listen to the things I actually say.
Carry on.
The young people do not see the same value in the monarchy that older people do, because it comes to a history that they haven't lived themselves.
Not yet, not yet.
If you do not recognise the opinion they have, you've seen the way that the younger generation acts. They do not react well to being told that they are less than or their opinion is irrelevant.
Well, I think I'm talking about it's irrelevant by percentage. I'm talking about it's irrelevant by percentage.
Numbers grow. They may be small now, but numbers can grow.
No, it hasn't grown. It's actually got smaller.
I'm saying that if you make people feel their opinion is irrelevant because you do not like it, you give them the motivation to make that opinion stronger.
Actually, I look upon this argument as irrelevant, but however...
In your opinion,
yes,
which is fine.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, mine is a view...
You evaluating it as irrelevant will find that offensive.
Well, I don't care if they are offended. I'd be delighted, actually, and it won't make the slightest bit of difference to the numbers. The numbers currently are actually very pro the royal family. There have been other times when they haven't been.
I think we're running out of time, unfortunately. David, I'll give you the final say on this. David, he cannot take the oath, as he has already said he doesn't agree with it, so how can he be sincere? If you're one of his constituents, I'd be interested to see what you think about this one as well. And someone said, Jim Starmer needs to show some leadership and get rid of him straight away. Well, that's it. We've run out of time. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to Judita and Kelvin. Up next, again, we can't get rid of him, is Martin Daubney. Here he is. See you. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. It looks like it'll be a pretty cloudy day for most of us on Friday. There's a risk of some very heavy showers across the southwest as well. Now, for most of us, high pressure is building in just for a time for the end of the week and into the start of the weekend. That means it will turn that much drier through the next few days, but there's still a risk of some showers. And through this evening, I think central areas are most likely to see the cloudiest skies and a risk of some rain through this evening. Also, some areas of rain might move into the far southeast from the near continent. Where skies remain clear, though, to the north, across parts of Scotland, it could be a bit of a fresh start down into the lower single figures by tomorrow morning. But for most of us, a fairly mild start. But as I said, sunshine is going to be a little bit limited through Friday. A northerly wind drags cloud in, perhaps some more heavy rain to the far northwest of Scotland throughout Friday morning. Some sunny spells, though, coming through for Northern Ireland, southwestern areas of Scotland. Also, some areas of northeastern England as well, but here we've got a northerly wind, and that's going to keep the temperatures down through the day. And as I said, there is a risk of showers across the south coast throughout the day, particularly as we head into the afternoon into the southwest. We could see some thundery, heavy downpours. But for most of us elsewhere, it should stay dry through Friday. Quite a lot of cloud around, though, so with that lack of sunshine, it's not going to be a particularly warm feeling day. And we could see some heavier rain move into the east coast of northern England later on in the day. So for most of us, temperatures in the high teens at best, possibly scraping 20 or 21 degrees in the far southeast. Saturday, there's little in the way of change. We've still got this rain lingering across eastern coasts of northern England and parts of Scotland, and once again we could see some fairly heavy showers breaking out across parts of Wales and southwestern England. But in any sunshine, it will feel quite warm over the weekend, particularly as we head towards Sunday, when I think it will be a bit of a drier day and we could see temperatures climbing into the low 20s.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Major problems in Perth and Kinross on the M90. The motorway is blocked southbound from junction 9 to 8 from the Bridge of Erne and the A91, where a car is on fire. On the M6 in Staffordshire, 2 lanes are closed northbound 16 to 17 from Stoke-on-Trent towards the Crewe exit, where a lorry is broken down. Long queues back to the Kiel services. On the Surrey stretch of the M25, there are anti-clockwise queues after a car broke down between Leatherhead and Reigate, junction 9 to 8. And on the Kent stretch, still really slow anti-clockwise further around as you head towards the Dartford tunnels following an earlier crash. Queues back to the M20. In East Sussex, the A27 remains shut between Berwick and Polegate for a police investigation, and there are still delays of 10 minutes on Gatwick Express trains out of Victoria and Brighton, also affecting southern services. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000,